Welcome, everybody. All right, great, guys. I'm going to get started. I hope everybody can see the screen so far. Welcome to the productivity discussion and webinar. So we're talking about the new world. The world has shifted. It's certainly shifted in a big way over the last 2 years. And what does that mean? There's a lot of talk around managing in the new normal. What is the new normal? I suppose that's different for every organization. However, through my experience, there's been businesses that have adopted a work from home strategy, most of which is a hybrid strategy. So as they start coming back to the office, they have adopted much smaller working spaces. So they're either working in shifts, or those who can work from home have certainly adopted that and are working from home. So it is a very disconnected kind of working environment. Now, that new working model certainly is a little bit disruptive and has certain challenges. This pandemic over the last 2 years has really thrown us into a state of new working, whether we liked it or not. Now, I can certainly say thank goodness for technology such as Microsoft 365 and Teams, Zoom, Skype, and those sorts of technologies. Without that, I don't think we would have coped working in these times. There's talk about by 2025, it's estimated that 70% of all workforce, 70% will be working remotely. I certainly know that the millennials love to work from home and seldom like to come into the office. The reality is that working remotely, I think, is here to stay. I think we can all agree on that. Working from home, we also, I mean, through this pandemic, you know, if we look at any positives, is that we've actually realized that we can work remotely. Myself, I really disliked working through Teams. Any kind of remote online meetings was certainly not my cup of tea. But over the last 2 years, it's certainly become more comfortable. And I think most people have certainly, through using the technology, have become more comfortable with it. And, you know, as I said before, companies are certainly adopting a work from home or a hybrid strategy. Okay. Now, that in itself has certain challenges. Businesses themselves have to maintain and improve productivity and efficiency. I mean, before all of this started, you know, there was a minimum of a 10% growth that any business was looking to add year on year. You know, with inflation, etc., we have to continuously grow and improve our businesses. So how do we maintain that? How is that impacting our profitability if we do not do that? How do we manage our remote employees, our remote teams? How do we deal with those sorts of things? Now, just because they have the technology doesn't mean that we necessarily can manage them effectively. There's also the security concerns. Now, in a traditional LAN environment, in a traditional office environment, there'd be a firewall. Everyone would come into the office, you'd log on, and then you'd be secure from the inside out. Now people are sitting in a coffee shop, they're sitting at home, they're connected to a public Wi-Fi, or they're connected to an LTE. How do they ensure that those security measures are still in place? And for the employees, there's a lot less personal engagement. You know, you're sitting by yourself in your house. You know, you're not surrounded by your colleagues. You're not having work discussions. You're not strategizing. So you tend to form a very disconnected working culture. Now, I know a lot of companies have internal meetings via Teams, and that too in itself poses many challenges, because people end up dragging out a 2-minute discussion into a 30-minute or an hour discussion, because we can't talk over each other. We can't all talk in sync, because when there's many people in a room on an online meeting, you know, we all have to take turns. There's a lot of silences so that we can give each other a break to speak. And so that too in itself doesn't allow for quick, you know, engagement and collaboration between teams. And so people either avoid it or they spend more time, and that time in itself is certainly wasted time. So what are the working benefits and trends? There certainly are, okay? A lot of people have reduced their office space. Now, if half your workforce is working from home, there's no need to incur you know, large costs in terms of your rentals and so on and so forth. So a lot of organizations have downsized their office space. I know of many of my customers, large law firms as an example, that have not renewed their leases, 10, 20-year leases that were running in large buildings in Sandton that have not been renewed anymore and are downsizing dramatically. And all of those employees are now going to be working from home. So there's certainly a lot of massive cost savings there. Obviously, the transit costs, driving to and from the office, the petrol, the wear and tear on vehicles, all of those costs now become far, far more reduced. For the employees themselves, there's a lot more flexibility. You can work, you can get up in the morning, have your coffee, have a shower, you can be online by 6 o'clock in the morning, and you can start work. You can then take a break, go do your shopping, do some stuff with the kids. So it's allowed for a lot of flexibility. So people can work odd hours, but still get their work done. Okay, and once again, that comes down to the hybrid. Now, my story. So we, 2 weeks, I'm sure you can all recall, 2 weeks leading into the first lockdown. Okay, everyone was given, I think, around 2 weeks to prepare and to move themselves into a full lockdown. So we are a telecommunications business as well. And so we were spending a lot of our time preparing ourselves to get all of our own employees plus all of our customers working remotely. So what did that mean? We were scrambling around trying to get LTE devices into people's houses. Whoever didn't have fiber to the home, whoever didn't have internet, the houses, we're getting them LTE dongles, we're getting them set up, making sure that their setup was secure, making sure that they had Wi-Fi. Then we'd set them up on hosted telephony, meaning that they could make and receive telephone calls off their application, either on their laptop or their cell phone, as if they're sitting in the office. So they could continue to work. So that 2 weeks was a mad scramble. And I'm sure it was for most organizations. We were also moving a lot of customers, their Microsoft to the cloud, if they didn't already have Microsoft 365. So there was all this quick preparation to get ourselves, able and capable to work from home. But then once the dust settled and all of this had been set up and everyone was now sitting at home and working, I kind of asked the question to myself, how do we know now we can work from home? How do I know we are working from home? How do I know that the teams are being productive? How do I know that we're being effective? So the first thing that ourselves and I know many other customers were doing, we would set up early morning Teams meetings. Okay, we'd set up afternoon meetings. So we were doing a lot of checking in to make sure that people were up, out of bed, out of their pajamas, dressed and ready to attend the day. And so we'd schedule these morning calls, but because there were so many meetings and so many people in these meetings, it was very difficult to kind of get an engagement of what's going on. Nobody was turning on their cameras because there was complaints that, they didn't have enough internet. And so that kind of fizzled out. And so it left this feeling of anxiousness, anxiety of, how do I know people are working? So we ended up kind of going down this discovery of, how do I now use technology over and above the ability just to work, but to actually manage and make sure that the teams are being effective. So how are companies managing performance? Okay, so through my many meetings with customers, a lot of have changed the actual strategies of how they're managing their people, simply because of circumstance. Because they can't see them daily, we can't sit and engage, we can't sit and discuss and bounce ideas back and forth. They've changed their strategy to incentivize people to become outcomes-based. Outcomes-based meaning, you've got a task, you get all the freedom, all the trust, and you go off and you now have to go and achieve your goals. And, that in itself has pros and cons, which I will address later, but one of which is, you get a task, you get freedom, and you kind of trusted to get that job done. But the problem is when that job is not completed to the satisfactory or to the requirements, we now have to look back in time, and now we're dealing with hindsight. Now we've lost time. We can't get back that productive time. And so once again, we have to unpack what's happened. We have to re-strategize and kind of give them another opportunity to get it done. Companies are also now doing regular performance reviews. They're doing it, at least quarterly, because Now, an annual review is just not enough because we're not seeing people regularly. We're not collaborating as normal. There's continuous feedback between managers, employees, and this feedback is actually more of micromanagement, is checking in. What's going on? What are you busy with? How are things going? And so by people calling in on you and continuously checking in on people, they get this feeling that I'm not trusted. Because I keep calling, because I keep checking in on me, forcing me to go and log on to meetings and show that I'm awake, people, they get this feeling that I'm not trusted. And so, that ugly micromanagement feeling starts to emerge. So people start turning to tools and applications. They start turning to technology on how we're going to solve these problems. Now, are employees productive on their computers? This is the question, okay? I personally know my wife goes to the shops. She's a housewife. She goes to the shops at odd hours during the day. She says the shops are full. It's full of couples, people holding hands, people that would generally otherwise be at the office. So what does this mean? Does this mean people are not working? Are people just simply using, different times of the day to work? Well, I suppose that question isn't answered. So to maximize employee efficiency, we need visibility. Visibility is not a lack of trust. It's about managing businesses. To manage businesses, we need to have visibility. We need to be on top of what we're doing. So what kind of visibility are we getting at the moment? What kind of visibility are we getting from our current software? So we certainly have products like Microsoft. Microsoft gives us Microsoft Analytics. That in itself gives some interesting information about how many emails you've attended, and when is your focus times. You perhaps have information that you're getting from a CRM system. How many tasks have been completed? But now you're turning to multiple tools to try and complete one picture. There's no one picture about how people are using their time. What are the trends of your people, the trends of the organization, the time management, how are the systems and how are the processes working for the business? There's no central dashboard that gives us complete visibility of the business and essentially filling the gaps. Now, I'm not insinuating that the tools we have at the moment are not effective. They absolutely are. But what I'm saying is, in a traditional working environment where we're all sitting in one room, we kind of feel that we're more connected. And so those disconnected tools, it's sufficient because we can still go and walk over and see what's going on. But that in itself doesn't guarantee if somebody's sitting in front of me that they're necessarily working. I've had scenarios where I've been with a customer and I've said, we look across the office, an open plan office, we can see somebody sitting there. We can see a lady sitting in front of her computer, computer's turned on, and is she being productive? Is she working? The customer says, yes, I can see she's sitting in front of her computer, her computer's on, and so she must be working productively. However, we turn to our tool, we look, and that lady had not been active. She had not been working for more than 10 minutes. She'd probably been looking down at her phone. So even though we may be sitting in front of people, that doesn't guarantee that we're going to know whether somebody's being productive or not. So we introduce our product called WorkStats. Now, WorkStats is a very easy system where it gives you a lot of graphical and a lot of reporting information, a single dashboard, as I was talking about, a single dashboard that gives you a holistic view of your business, okay? Allowing you to get complete insight as to what your people, the trends of the business, etc., are doing. So we start off with the people in the business because ultimately that's the most important thing. How are the people in the business? Now, we all have a preconceived idea about who is our top performers, who's our middle performers, and who's our slackers, okay? Now, I guarantee you, your misconceptions, your preconceived ideas, should I say, are often wrong, okay? We've seen this time and time again where customers have this preconceived idea about who's the superstars, who's slacking, and most often, once they start to see the real data, because this is objective, it's not about personal feelings, it's not about who I feel I like and dislike. Data is facts, and facts drive better decisions. So let's look at the scenario here. We've got a couple of characters. We've got Susan. Susan is a high performing, she's highly productive, and she also is effective. Okay, so what I mean by that is productive, meaning working hard, doesn't necessarily mean I'm being effective. So she is both, and I'll get to that in a moment. Next, we've got John. John certainly is trying, he's working hard, there's a fair amount of effort, but he's not effective. So what does that mean? John is somebody who's putting in a lot of work, but they're doing all of the wrong things. Now, when we're talking about outcomes-based management, if somebody's working hard, we get the sense that things are going to get done. We're going to achieve our goals. However, if we're doing a lot of the wrong activities, we're often missing our goals and we don't know why. And it's very difficult to kind of put that pieces together and understand that without a holistic kind of tool like this. We look at it, Pete. Pete's a slacker. He takes every opportunity he can to get away with not doing his work. And so he's not effective and he's not productive, right? That's an easy one. You know, he's watching YouTube, he's on Netflix, he's on social media, he's doing all the wrong things and he's not getting to his work. And that's very easy to pick up as well. Then we've got a Jane. Now, Jane is a person who's putting in a fair amount of effort, excuse me, but she is inconsistent, meaning she's probably not focused. She's getting pulled into this, she's getting pulled into that. She's probably not focused on the task at hand. And so she's not consistently putting out top results. So how do we identify these trends? Just having a sip of water there. So if I could start at the bottom here, let's look at the Pete, all right? So at this report here, this is called a user KPI report, a key performance indicator report. So this is a very easy way for us to see the effort level, okay? So here we've got everything up to 100% and above. We've got, you know, a 24-hour day, and we can see the effort level of productive time through the day. So what do I mean by productivity? Productive means I'm using any web or productive app that is deemed to be productive for my role. Okay, so what I mean by for your role is in accounts, I can use Sage, I can use email, I can use Excel, and all of those tools, and that for me is productive. In marketing, I can use social media, I can use, you know, all those tools that would otherwise be ineffective for the accounts department. So we classify what is productive for that particular role. So we here see the green line that will show me what time of the day Pete logged on and how productive he was for the day. Now we also go and we set a goal. That goal is called capacity. Capacity means how many hours am I expecting a Pete or a John to work through a day on their computer. Now, this individual may be external half the day. They may be seeing clients face to face. They may be on the telephone. And so we set a capacity, meaning how many hours do we expect? We don't expect 8 out of you. We're expecting 4 because we understand that you may be on the telephone. So we set that goal. That's your 100% goal. So it's always a relative goal. We're not expecting whoever works the longest is necessarily the winner. We're saying it's a relative goal toward that person and that role. Okay, so we set that capacity at 4 hours, and here we can see the productive hours sitting a little over 5 hours, but we can also see a 5-day average, which gives me a trend, because we all know we can have an extremely busy or quiet day, but if we look over a trend, trends are telling us what's happening. And if we look at a trend will give us a more definitive answer as to whether people are now aligning themselves towards the effort level. Okay, so now we can see we've got Pete on track. Pete's putting in the hours. That's fantastic. Now, just earlier I mentioned simply working hard doesn't guarantee we're achieving our goals. So now we take that activity on the computer and we break it down into the following categories. Firstly, we say email. Email is one of the most utilized tools across any organization. Email has become our go-to platform to communicate internally and externally with clients and colleagues. And once again, this can chew up a lot of our time, and I've found to be a common distraction amongst a lot of people. It's not to say that it's not a productive tool, but it is necessarily, it could be a distraction towards achieving your goals. So what do I mean by that? Okay, we've got admin. Admin would be Excel, Word, PDF, any of your administration tools. We've got business systems, which is essentially any software you use to drive your business. IT systems would be in your IT department. Online meetings would be your Teams, your Skype, your Zoom, You've got your chats, your messaging, which would be your WhatsApp chats, Skype chats, etc. You've got research and browsing, which is general internet browsing, Google browsing and such. You've got your banking and financial, which is, Sage, it's FNB, it's ABSA, etc. You've got your learning and your online learning, if you guys have any online learning platforms, social and news, if it is a productive app for that particular role. You've got ineffective, which is Netflix and Teams, and it's not Teams, sorry, YouTube and such. And then you've got your passive time. Now, why do we break it down like this? Okay, because I want to see in my particular role, let's take a finance department. Okay, finance has a tool called Sage, and we want them to be spending at least 30 to 40% of their day on a financial platform, capturing invoices, doing recons, generating new reports for the Exco team, etc., etc. So here we can see our finance is at 0%. So as an example, if this lady was supposed to be spending her time in finance and she was spending no time there, and she was spending all of her time on email and a lot of her time on social and news, we'd say, right, we can see we're working hard, but we're doing the wrong things. So your line manager and your employee would sit down and say, right, what is the best way to get through our day? What tools should we be using? Maybe we should be using our business systems. Maybe we should be using our online meetings. Maybe we should be having more meetings. So it's very easy to see that these percentages line up. Now, any of these categories you click on brings up the details on the right-hand side. So I've used email as an example. We click, it says Microsoft Outlook. I click on that. Further, I break it down. So we can go into granular detail and see how much time has been spent on each spreadsheet, how much time has been spent drafting emails to which clients, how many meetings have been conducted, and were they internal or external meetings? Are those internal meetings aligning with your calendar? Okay, the calendar also integrates into this and will pop up, and you'll be able to see, am I attending my meetings? Are the meetings running over? Why am I not attending them at all? So this allows us to go into detail and see, are we being productive? Are we being effective? And are we spending our time on the right tools and using the right systems to achieve our goals? So that's about the people in the business. How do we know that they're being effective? Then we look at the managers, and we spoke a little bit earlier about that sense of anxiety when we don't know what's going on. That anxiety, once again, will lead to a manager continuously checking in. And myself, we did this in the very beginning as well. And it wasn't through a lack of trust. It was simply because we were taken from one environment to another. We were used to seeing people, we were used to checking in on people, seeing what they were doing, and that completely disappeared. So we were left with no choice but to resort to micromanagement, and people didn't enjoy it either. We also found that top employees that were working in the office were now struggling at home. And that wasn't because of anything other than they too were feeling depressed. Maybe they were now working in a different environment. They weren't surrounded by work colleagues, but they were surrounded by their kids. Maybe the kids were distracting them. And so it doesn't necessarily mean, if somebody was working hard in the office, they're now going to be succeeding at home. So why now do the managers get benefit out of this tool? Well, we have complete oversight and insight as to what people are doing. We can see who's online, meaning who's logged onto their computers, who's currently being productive, and what productive apps are they using, who's ineffective, who's passive, who's offline. Offline meaning computer switched off. Passive meaning computers on, but haven't been doing any physical work for more than 5 minutes. So now I can see who's working, who's not working. I feel connected. I can see that the apps and the websites that these guys are using are in line with what they should be doing. And so as a manager, I now feel connected. I now know, I feel comfortable what people are doing. And so we don't feel the need to continuously check in because I can see what's going on and I can see that you're being productive. And at a click of a button, I can drill into the details and I can see how much time you've spent in which apps. And I can see John is doing well. John is working on the right things. His effort level is correct. And now I can recognize and I can reward him for his top performance. And I spoke earlier about these preconceived ideas. Now, I've got a story about a client who he had a very bad relationship with one of the ladies in his office. And I think it was purely a personal relationship. They didn't enjoy each other's company. It was a clash of characters, right? And he had told me he was very unhappy with this lady, and he wanted the software because he wanted to prove that she wasn't doing her job, and he wanted to get rid of her. Well, he loaded the software, he got it working, and a week later he called me up and he said, Warren, you cannot believe that this lady, the lady who I thought was the weakest link in the chain, has turned out to be a superstar. And it's completely changed the relationship that we have. I can see that she's been working far harder than everybody else in the office. She's been putting in the most effort, but she and I didn't have a good relationship. He was her manager, she was the employee. And so he was continuously, kind of putting pressure on her, and she was feeling inadequate. However, she was the superstar. Once he had seen those insights, he had a completely different perspective, and their relationship changed. She's now a top performer. He's recognizing her amongst the peers. She's enjoying herself now in the office because she feels like she's being rewarded for the hard work that she's been putting in. So once again, this type of system is certainly anything but micromanagement. It is the complete opposite. Real-time information allows managers, allows people to be objective, okay? And all of this information is sent out on daily reports. And a lot of companies use the bottom-up strategy. So what do I mean by that? The employee gets their own reports on a daily basis, and they too can self-manage. They can see what they've done with their day, because a lot of the time we get to the end of the day and we kind of say to ourselves, where did the day go? How did it get away from me? What did I do? And so it's always interesting to look in and see, right, I spent my time on this and I got pulled into that. And maybe too many emails came through and I wasn't focused. And so the employees themselves can self-manage, and it allows that adoption of the system, and so that transparency obviously moves it in the right direction. Now we look at another part, okay? We've looked at the people, the users, the managers, but now another great bit of information that we can draw out of this is the systems themselves, okay? So many organizations, ourselves included, have invested in expensive tools like CRM systems and ERP systems, such as Microsoft Dynamics, such as SAP, etc. Now, how do we know that people have adopted these systems? There's a lot of talk about, the system's not working, I can't log in, it's slow, it's this, it's that. And so we've helped a lot of organizations by showing them people are not adopting the system. They're simply using old tools because they're unwilling to change, okay? And so without that insight, because you can see what's happening in the CRM system, but you can't see what's happening outside of it. Whereas this gives you complete insight. So we've seen in so many scenarios, people are still using Excel. In this example here, this report is called Most Used, and it gives us from most to least all the applications and websites that are used in the organization. And we can see Outlook number one, once again, the most used application, whether that be a positive or negative in your organization. However, you can draw that conclusion. And second here is Excel. Now, people are running spreadsheets that are sitting on their personal C drive, okay? So we've got company information, we've got customer information, we've got disconnected spreadsheets that are not in a central environment. We've got a central CRM system that is supposed to track and manage customer engagement, customer database, lead opportunities, yet people are still using Excel. So now we can drill into that and we can see who's using Excel, what documents are they in, how much time are they spending on Excel. I can click into the actual CRM system. Here I've clicked on Sage as an example, and I can show if there are bottlenecks in the system. I can show if there's a training requirement. I can see if one lady gets stuck in one part of the system for nearly an hour capturing customer invoices, whereas another lady can get the same amount of work done in the same area in 15 minutes. So that allows me to see a single individual requires a training. Now, most people, if you're looking at outcomes, will see that the job still gets done. However, it's taken one lady more than twice the amount of time to get the same task done. We're still getting the outcome, but we are not effective in that process. So this gives us that insight to see, are we effective? Are the processes working? Okay, we can see if there's a bottleneck which so that all people are getting stuck in the same place rather than just one person. And so we can drill into the granular details here. We can even see the amount of usage on a system that'll allow us to get insights to say, are we oversubscribed with licenses? Maybe there's a less than 10% usage on the total system and we're paying a large amount of money. So there's ways and means of creating efficiencies. And this is about performance enhancement, because is it not our responsibility as business owners to ensure that we are continuously driving towards performance and optimization and increasing productivity and increasing effectiveness? Now, the beauty is we get this complete insight and allows us to be objective and to make real-time discussions and real-time decisions. And once again, real-time is never historical. We didn't lose that time. So it leads me on to my next slide. As I said before, a lot of organizations have moved to this outcomes-based strategy where you start here and you've got your goal. Now, once again, if you've missed your goal at the end, you've disappointed your customer, you've now missed the target, and you now have to go look back. You have to unpack. So it's hindsight. How did we go wrong? Where did we go wrong? And we kind of re-strategize and we do it again. Now, once again, time is money. We cannot afford to have any goals missed. So with a system like this, with this type of productivity software, we can do incremental check-ins and we can do small course corrections. We can keep people on track to ensure that every outcome is never missed. Every outcome is always achieved by ensuring that we've got that real-time data and we're keeping that on track. Another part which we spoke about earlier is the security. Now, there's various security tools that we can use and softwares. However, in today's times, there's things like Poppy, where it has become an increasing requirement of a company to ensure that their data is safe and that they're protecting their company information. So with this system, we can set up a trigger and alert to say, if somebody infringes on company policy, whether that be downloading company information, intellectual property, such as, customer database, quotes, any information that is proprietary to your company, downloading it to a USB, sending it to a cloud drive, copy and pasting it to a Word document, any one of those events can be triggered an alert. That information can be tracked. It can even trigger a screenshot to gain further evidence as to what was done and whether that was an infringement or a serious offense or not. We can even take it a step further and say, we also want to know about certain behaviors. We don't want people visiting inappropriate content sites. That too can trigger. We can say, we want to have a trigger if people are visiting my competitors, if people are connecting with competitors, if people are sending out their CVs and looking for jobs, I want to know about it. So anything you wish to gain further perspective, we can set up an alert. That alert will be triggered. It'll immediately send to the direct line manager or administrator to ensure that they now have that information and they can take the relevant action. Once again, the system like this is incredibly easy. It doesn't require any integration of any kind. Now, that's an important one to focus on, because if we look at any CRM system, any ERP system, any software that is delivered into an organization, there's typically a huge amount of effort, huge amount of work and money that it requires to customize and build the system to give you the kind of information that you're looking for. With this system, you simply deploy it to the end user, you log on to the dashboard, and the information is instant. You literally get full instant insights within a single day without any integration. It is extremely simple, and it's just a sound way of managing business, because real-time data-driven decisions are often far more effective than ones based on perceptions and assumptions. And I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who attended the webinar. And we're now going to address any questions that you may have in the chat. Leave your questions in the comments box, and a copy of the webinar will be sent to you as well. And obviously, as per the original email, a 14-day free trial offer will also be emailed to you. And you're obviously very welcome to opt into that. And we will then take this discussion further. Thank you very much, guys.